Live from New Delhi, you're watching GD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Amritpal Singh. Coming up in the next 1 hour, Syria's president calls for calm and unity amid brutal clashes. A death toll from violence in the country rises to more than 1,000. United Nations calls for protection of civilians. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will do everything to end the war as he talks with US and Saudi officials approach next week. Israel and Hamas to hold talks in Doha on Monday to negotiate the next round of ceasefire in Gaza. And in the Champions Trophy final, Shreyas Iyer, Akshar Patel rebuild after India lose 3 wickets in quick succession in the 252-run chase against New Zealand. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to visit Saudi Arabia on Monday for key talks with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. This comes ahead of the crucial meeting between Ukrainian and US officials later this week. The discussions aim to establish a framework for ending Ukraine's ongoing conflict with Russia, but with US aid to Kyiv currently paused, the stakes are high. Here's more.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Saudi Arabia comes as Ukraine and the US prepare for critical negotiations over the future of the conflict with Russia. Zelensky will hold key talks with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Monday. This will be followed by Ukrainian diplomatic and military representatives meeting with the American team on Tuesday. The Ukrainian side will include country's Foreign Affairs Minister Andriy Sybiha. Washington's Special Envoy Steve Witkoff confirmed that discussions are underway to finalize the meeting's location in either Riyadh or Jeddah.
We're now in discussions to coordinate a meeting with the Ukrainians in Riyadh or even potentially Jeddah. And I think the idea is to get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire as well.
The talks are particularly significant given that Ukraine was excluded from a February meeting in Riyadh between US and Russian officials. That exclusion raised concerns in Kyiv and among European allies about the direction of US diplomacy. Despite a strained relationship between the two leaders, President Trump recently said that he had received a letter from Zelensky expressing Ukraine's willingness to negotiate. Trump also mentioned Ukraine's interest in signing a minerals deal with the US, a potential economic incentive for Washington's continued support for Kyiv.
I think a mineral deal is under question. For a start, if the Americans are withdrawing with one hand, it puts less pressure on the Ukrainians to do a deal. On the other hand, it is, to be fair, the Ukrainians do want to salvage something from the relationship. I think it's also questionable that President Trump is purely transactional and purely commercial in his interests, because if he were, then actually this deal would have been done last week and he would not have put the Ukrainians off in the manner in which he did, or ambushed them in the manner in which they were.
The meeting in Saudi Arabia is set to take place at a critical moment. US aid to Ukraine is currently on hold, adding pressure on Kyiv as it seeks continued support. European nations have pledged to increase defense spending, but NATO data shows that last year Washington provided over 40% of Ukraine's military aid, something that Europe may struggle to replace. Meanwhile, the battlefield situation remains volatile. Both Russia and Ukraine continue to launch attacks and counterattacks, underscoring the urgency of finding a diplomatic resolution. After a public spat with Donald Trump, Zelensky has now expressed full commitment to a constructive dialogue with the US. The key question now is how would the truce negotiations proceed? What would the Russians agree to, even as they make significant gains on the battlefield? Nupur Praveen reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, in a dramatic escalation of hostilities, both Russian and Ukrainian forces have reported intense overnight activity, highlighting the ongoing conflict that continues to reshape the region. DD India's Rahul Upadhyaya brings this report.
Russian air defense units successfully destroyed 88 Ukrainian drones overnight. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities claim to have intercepted 73 out of 119 drones launched by Russia during the same period. They added that 37 drones were redirected using electronic warfare, with damage reported across 6 Ukrainian regions. Russia was storming the town of Zudza on Sunday after special forces used a gas pipeline to surprise Ukrainian units as part of a major offensive to eject Ukrainian soldiers from the western Russian region of Kursk. Zudza is the home of major gas transfer and measuring stations on a pipeline that used to carry Russian natural gas into the Ukrainian gas transmission system for onward transportation to Europe. Thousands of Ukrainian soldiers seized about 1,300 square kilometers of Russia's Kursk region in August last year in what Kiev said was an attempt to gain a bargaining chip in future negotiations and to force Russia to shift military forces from eastern Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry said its forces had retaken the village of Lebdivka, as well as seizing Novinka, a hamlet across the border in Ukraine's neighboring Sumy region. Meanwhile, a Ukrainian drone hit an industrial facility overnight in Russia's Volga River region of Chuvashia, some 1,300 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. The strike, one of the deepest yet into Russia by a Ukrainian drone. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
So what is likely to transpire in the talks tomorrow and in the coming week between the Ukrainians and the Americans? To talk about that, I'm joined by Manjeev Singh Puri, former senior diplomat. Thank you, sir, for joining on the show. Always a pleasure to have you. Now, my opening question. When Zelensky meets MBS tomorrow, what are they going to talk about? What is likely to transpire between them? What could the Crown Prince tell Zelensky?
Amritpal, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to your show. Look, Saudi Arabia, if you will recall, for quite some time have had a certain entree in this entire conflict. If you recall, they had managed to arrange a prisoners exchange sometime during the UNFCCC COP in Dubai in November 2023. President Putin had also visited the Saudis. So, you know, there is a certain issue there. The Americans also know the Saudis, so there is some reason why these talks are taking place there. Now, MBS is an important play for the Americans, for the Russians, and the Ukrainians also know that. And therefore, my understanding is that the most important thing President Zelensky will try and tell him is that, look, whatever may have happened in Washington, he wants to try and salvage things, wants to have a deal, wants to take things forward because American support for his country is absolutely essential. And once, you know, that gets, let me say, internalized by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, it would also be good for him to be able to relay this across to the Americans, that you certainly have an opportunity to get it from the horse's mouth yourself, the Ukrainian delegation. But I'm telling you, they are now willing, no matter whatever happened, let's try and find a deal forward.
Okay. So is it that, you know, Zelensky today said that he's fully committed to the talks of his country with the Americans? He's already written a letter to President Trump. President Trump also says that looks like he's come around. So after, does he now realize that he doesn't have the cards, as some would say? President Trump rather rudely told him after the Americans stopped the supply and intelligence sharing to him.
No, Amritpal, look, these are the limits of being somebody who's dependent on others. He knew that very well. And whether he has the cards or not, this was known from the beginning. But, you know, if you are the big supporter, and the Americans are certainly the big supporters, and the turnaround there has been 180 degrees. This is also something that needs to be understood out there. What happened between them, nobody here would say that President Zelensky handled the matters very well. But on the other hand, you know, you also have to agree that for someone who has had such a long relationship of a particular kind, the issue of what people call ambush or the way he was treated, etc., would have also left him quite stunned and taken aback, quite apart from the English language business. So let's leave that aside. The Europeans who came to his defense, of course, also told him that, look, they have limitations. and getting the act together with the Americans was of interest and useful. Now, I am sure even at the American end, there is a certain understanding that, look, what we are proposing is fine, but let's also perhaps try and see what we can do and take things forward. Look, they have a certain interest in the minerals deal, but I think more than that, President Trump thinks that his much better and more important element for him is that he finds ways to answer that fundamental promise that he made during the elections, that he will stop the war. The second point that he has often stressed, and people tend to, forget it, is that he says that he can talk to Putin. With him around, President Putin will be willing to do a deal. So, there is this entire issue of building his own reputation, his legacy, and standing up for what he has said he will be able to do.
True, Ambassador Puri, but that's from Donald Trump's point of view. From Zelensky's point of view, would he then now give up on security guarantees on which he was very insistent because the ground situation doesn't augur well for him without the American support? And as you said, the Europeans told him that you need to mend your fences with the Americans, otherwise it's a lost cause for you. So will he now give up on something he was very insistent upon, security guarantees?
So, Amritpal, let's also understand that President Trump has been saying that the deal itself is a security guarantee with the presence of American business people, enterprises, etc. Now, many others would say, that's not really the case. It takes a long time, etc. The question of buying it is a different matter. But let me put this across to you, something like this. The issue really at stake is this thing which everybody has forgotten, and I think even Zelensky is having to accept it, which is the so-called territorial integrity of Ukraine. And the areas that the Russians have annexed, are they going to return it? Doesn't look like it. President Trump has been quite clear in saying, look, that's gone and that's over. Now let's look at what can be done. Let's also understand that the Ukrainians must be quite war fatigued. They've taken. So,
are you saying the Ukrainians are not, Ambassador? Are you saying the Ukrainians are not getting back their eastern areas and Donetsk, etc.?
Look, I would be very surprised if that happened.
Okay.
Because the Russians have, of course, said no question. The Americans have also, in fact, President Trump has said, look, what's gone is gone. Let's just look at doing a peace the way they are. It's a tough call for anybody who's the leader of a country to accept this kind of stuff.
And
he finds himself between a rock and a hard place.
Right, sir. But would then Zelensky insist to keep what he's occupied in Russia in the Kursk region?
Let me say those are relatively smaller things, and I'm not sure even that would be possible because the deal would have to have a certain amount of accommodation for the Russians. How much of security guarantees the Americans give in terms of the Europeans saying they might put some boots on the ground. Would the Americans agree to give them a kind of security cover, an air cover, etc.? We all have to watch and see what happens. But one thing is clear, the Ukrainians and the Ukrainian leadership kind of realizes that, look, their entire set of backers, including those who say we are strongly with them, they have their limitations, and the situation is between a rock and a hard place. Bargain as well as you can, but you would perhaps be best off. Why they've changed their mind? Why have the Americans had 180 degrees turnaround? Those are academic questions. How does it matter? You have to deal with the situation as presented to you.
Okay, but then, the question arises that Donald Trump may be able to get what he says he wants to get, or what he had promised to his electorate to get, a truce deal and fast. But wouldn't that be shaky if it comes on the terms it comes on?
So, Mr. Trump has been very clear that as long as he is president, the Russians won't do anything. He is confident because of what he believes is a relationship with President Putin, and also in his own great confidence in what the United States would do under his leadership. If I'm not mistaken, he said the same thing about President Xi Jinping and the Taiwanese question. So, leaders take a call, they make a determination, they have a certain perspective, they put it forward. And what exactly does shakiness mean? I mean, if this thing holds out and things go forward, we will see after a little while what happens. Now, the Europeans and others have been long brought up on the idea that the Russians want to move in towards them. Will that go away? It takes a very long time to build this kind of trust. And recent memories will not serve anybody in any direction. But you have to give time. What else can you do? Are you in a position of doing it yourself? It would appear that the Europeans can't do it by themselves. They've themselves said that to President Zelensky. The United States has a president who has a certain worldview and a certain desire to do things in a particular manner. Their involvement and their cooperation support is essential for him. So that's the situation in which the Europeans, as well as, of course, the Ukrainians, President Zelensky, right in the middle of it, find themselves.
Okay. So we've talked about what the Americans want. We've talked about what Zelensky wants. But before I let go of you, what do the Russians want? Because after Donald Trump issued a veiled threat or an open threat to the Russians saying, well, I'll put more banking restrictions on you without further elaborating what that meant, more than the ones already in place. What would the Russians want? Because the Russians had said we have Ankara, or I think the Istanbul proposal is a good starting point to talk.
Look, fundamentally, in my understanding, one particular thing is Ukraine is not becoming a member of NATO.
Okay.
This is also something that President Trump has sort of said, maybe explicitly or otherwise. The other thing is the areas that they've got, the so-called Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine. I can't see them wanting to give those up at all.
Okay.
And then other kinds of normalizations in terms of economic sanctions and so on and so forth. That's what they will try. They will also try and negotiate hard in the matter. But let's also understand, I just saw a recent report which said that some 800,000 troops have been lost by the Russians. So, they've also taken a hit. There are issues at their end too.
Oh, they are economically very badly stressed.
Look, I have been to Moscow recently. In some senses, one can say, yes, they are stressed, but it's a huge economy and a rather big place. Okay. They are taking a hit. And definitely, they would like to find some kind of a way forward vis-a-vis the Western countries. May not easily happen with the Europeans. Why not start the oil trade, etc.? But with the Americans, if something happens, lots of openings happen. So I think a certain amount of interest, or more than a certain amount of interest, rests with President Putin. It is also there with all the other parties to the game. However, is it really going to be a peace which kind of satisfies the Ukrainians and satisfies the Europeans? That may not really be the case.
Okay. We'll have to see where this goes, but thank you very much, Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri, for joining us and lending us your insight. Thank you. And still to come up on DD India News Hour, US Commerce Secretary says President Trump will not ease up on fentanyl-related tariffs. Canadian Liberals to announce Trudeau's successor in midst of a US trade war. And thousands of Australians go without power as Storm Alfred lashes Queensland.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Amritpal Singh. Security forces of Syria's new regime have been accused of killing Alawite civilians in revenge attacks. Over 1,000 people have been killed in the country in less than a week amid a conflict between the security forces and fighters loyal to deposed leader Bashar al-Assad. The UN has called for protecting the civilians. More in this report.
Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Shara has called for peace and national unity as the country battles its worst violence since the fall of Bashar al-Assad's government in December 2024. Over 1,000 people have been killed after clashes between security forces of the new regime and militias loyal to Assad began on Thursday.
What is happening in the country is a challenge and is expected. We must maintain national unity and civil peace in the country as much as we can. We are able to live together in this country. As long as the revolution erupted out of these mosques that taught their sons good morals, courage, generosity and justice, there is no fear in Syria.
Notably, fighting is happening in coastal areas including Latakia, which is the heartland of the Alawite sect whose members include deposed President al-Assad. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the casualties include nearly 745 Alawite civilians who were killed by security forces in revenge attacks. The violence has sparked international outrage, with the United Nations calling on all parties to immediately cease hostilities. While US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Syrian leaders must hold the perpetrators accountable. Condemning the bloodshed, the European Union, whose officials met Shara after he became the de facto leader of Syria, rejected any attempts to undermine the prospects for a lasting peaceful transition in the country. Germany said that the government has a responsibility to prevent further attacks. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said that Europe must stop granting legitimacy to Syria's transitional authority. Calling for accountability, local Kurdish leaders accused Turkey-backed factions of orchestrating the killings. Meanwhile, delegations from Syria, Turkey and Iraq are holding security talks in Jordan. Earlier, Western and regional leaders warned of a possible resurgence of the Islamic State as a fallout of Assad's ouster. Now the targeted killings of Alawites have become a major concern.
We should join together and save this country and this victory that happened. We reached something big and we should maintain it and love each other. This country is for everyone.
While pressure mounts on al-Shara to contain the violence, residents continue to flee as the mayhem continues unabated. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Syria's neighbors have agreed to step up the campaign against Islamic State as the security meet in Jordan's capital Amman. Turkey has said that 5 countries have decided to set up a joint combat and intelligence mechanism to counter Islamic State's resurgence in the region. The meeting was attended by delegates from Syria, Turkey and Iraq. The Hamas on Sunday said it may release US-Israeli hostage as part of the talks to end the Gaza war, as Israel is sending a delegation to Doha for further Gaza truce talks on Monday. While Hamas demands negotiations on ceasefire's second phase, including a full Israeli withdrawal and the lifting of a blockade, Israel seeks to extend the truce until mid-April. Protests in Tel Aviv call for securing hostages. DD India's Mihir Makhuri has more.
Israel is preparing to send a delegation to Doha for further talks on the Gaza truce on Monday, as Hamas calls for the immediate start of negotiations on the ceasefire second phase, which it hopes will bring a permanent end to the war. Over the weekend, Hamas representatives met with mediators in Cairo, emphasizing the urgent need for unrestricted humanitarian aid to re-enter Gaza, which has been under siege for months. Hamas's key demands for the second phase of the ceasefire includes a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, the lifting of the Israeli blockade, the reconstruction of Palestinian territory, and financial support to rebuild the region. On the other hand, Israel seeks an extension of the truce's first phase until mid-April. The first phase of the truce, which ended on March 1, brought 6 weeks of relative calm, including the exchange of 25 Israeli hostages and 8 bodies for about 1,800 Palestinian prisoners. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, thousands of Israeli protesters gathered outside the defense ministry, demanding the government secure a hostage deal with Hamas.
The majority of the Israelis are for bringing back the hostages and against starting some military actions back. This is, you can see it in every public poll, and it's very clear. The problem is the government and Mr. Netanyahu.
Last week, US President Donald Trump issued a last warning to Hamas, threatening further destruction of Gaza if all remaining hostages were not released. In recent days, meetings between Hamas leaders and US hostage negotiator Adam Boehler have focused on securing the release of an American-Israeli dual national held by Hamas in Gaza. How these talks unfold and lead to an end to the war will be something interesting to watch. Mihir Makri's report for DD India.
And shifting focus, White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett says a resolution to the US-Canada dispute over fentanyl smuggling could be reached by the end of March, potentially delaying tariffs set to be reimposed by President Donald Trump. Speaking to a US media outlet, Hassett indicated that Trump's fluctuating tariff policy reflects his concerns over drug trafficking across the northern border. Canada's Liberal Party will announce its leader in Ottawa on Sunday to replace Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. 4 candidates qualified to run in the Liberal leadership race, but only 2 are seen as viable contenders. The 2 names doing the rounds among the frontrunners include Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney.
The upcoming Canadian federal election is shaping up to be a pivotal moment in the country's political landscape. With Justin Trudeau stepping down as Prime Minister earlier this year, the Liberal Party is in the midst of selecting a new leader, widely expected to be Mark Carney. The leadership change has injected fresh energy into the Liberals, who are currently trailing the Conservative Party in the polls. Canada's ruling Liberal Party is all set to choose a new leader to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on March 9. Unlike in Australia and Britain, where prime ministers are chosen by legislators and can be removed as and when required, the heads of political parties in Canada are chosen by members in special contests. People who have registered as Liberals can vote. There is no fee to becoming a party member. Canadians and permanent residents are eligible for membership. The party said on January 30 that around 400,000 people had signed up to vote. Canada has a population of around 41 million. Now let's understand how results are calculated. The contest will be a ranked ballot of voters in each of the 343 parliamentary constituencies, also known as ridings. Each riding is allocated 100 points. These are distributed based on the ratio of votes won by a contestant in each riding. The system means a candidate must have broad backing across the country rather than just amassing the largest number of supporters. Voters in each riding rank the candidates in order of preference. If no contestant gets more than 50% of the overall points on the first count, the leadership contestant who received the least points is eliminated. This is where the ranked ballots play a key role. The Liberal Party will redistribute the ballots of the eliminated contestant to the other contenders based on who voters in each riding choose as their second option. This process continues until someone takes more than 50% of the points. Canada's political landscape is diverse, with several parties shaping its democracy. Let's take a look at the main ones. The Liberal Party of Canada, it's known for its centrist and progressive policies. The Liberals have been a dominant force in Canadian politics. They were led by Justin Trudeau until recently. Conservative Party of Canada, positioned on the centre-right, the Conservatives focus on fiscal responsibility and traditional values. Pierre Poilievre is the current leader. New Democratic Party, the left-leaning party advocating for social democracy and progressive reform, led by Jagmeet Singh. Bloc Québécois, the regional party that promises Quebec's interests and sovereignty, led by Yves-François Blanchet. The Green Party of Canada, focused on environmental issues and sustainability, led by Elizabeth May and Jonathan Pedniault. People's Party of Canada, a newer party with a focus on libertarian and populist policies, led by Maxime Bernier. Under Canada's fixed election law, the next national vote must be held by October 20, but could take place much sooner. The new Prime Minister could call an election any time after March 9. An election could also be triggered in late March, when a vote of no confidence in the government is expected in Parliament. If all the opposition parties vote against the Liberals, the government will fall. Bureau Report, DD India.
And as the Liberal leadership race reaches its final days, candidate Mark Carney made a powerful appeal to the voters at a spirited rally he held earlier this evening in Mississauga. Hundreds of enthusiastic supporters gathered at the Mississauga Convention Centre, eager to hear Carney's vision and strategy for Canada's future. Our team was there to capture the energy and the message. Here's more.
I was working to build strong economies. And now I'm calling on those same values in the face of this crisis. But we need to do some things differently because new threats demand new ideas and new challenges demand new leadership.
With the decisive vote approaching on March 9th, candidate Mark Carney hosted a vibrant rally at Mississauga Convention Centre. Hundreds of supporters gathered this evening at Mississauga to hear former Bank of Canada Governor outline his vision of Canada. Carney emphasized his extensive experience in managing economic crisis.
They want our water, they want our land, they want our country. Never. Think about it for a moment. Think about it for a moment if they succeeded. They would destroy our way of life. Look at this room. It's an amazing room of Canadians.
Supporters at the event expressed confidence in Carney's economic expertise and his ability to unify the party ahead of upcoming federal elections.
We are supporting Mark Carney because he is the right candidate for the party and the right person for the leadership, because we need the person who can lead Canada.
We are looking for a good change in the country at this point, and that's why we are here to support Mark Carney.
Well, I think it's a great day to be here in our region of Peel at this amazing Peel rally with Mark Carney, who's going to be the next leader of the Liberal Party of Canada and our next Prime Minister.
What I like about Mark Carney is just his depth of experience and knowledge. He has great economical and fiscal knowledge.
Now the time to have a new leader elected, and Mark Carney will be the new replacement.
Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is also a strong contender. Known for her role in negotiating the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, Freeland advocates for a firm stance against US tariffs and underscores the importance of defending Canadian sovereignty in the face of external pressures. Karina Gold, former government house leader, brings a relatable middle-class perspective to the race. Other candidates like Frank Bellis emphasizes innovation and technological advancement. The leadership election processes involved a ranked ballot system across Canada's 343 parliamentary ridings, with each riding allocated 100 points. A candidate must secure over 50% of the points nationwide to win. If no candidate achieves this in the first round, the lowest securing candidate is eliminated and votes are redistributed based on voter preferences until a winner emerges. From Canada, Tarun Paul Singh.
And still to come up on DD India News Hour, Indian High Commissioner to Mauritius shares key insights ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming visit there tomorrow. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh becomes the first Defence Minister to visit Indian Air Force's Institute of Aerospace Medicine in Bengaluru. And India gets the 58th Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh. Prime Minister Modi hails the move. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Amritpal Singh. In more international updates, the leader of world's 1.4 billion Catholics, Pope Francis, who's responding well to treatment for pneumonia, has thanked his doctors and healthcare workers as he missed delivering a fourth consecutive Angelus prayer in person. The 88-year-old, who has been admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital since the 14th of February, issued written Angelus in which he thanked those who volunteer to help others in need, praising their closeness and tenderness. Sunday also saw the faithful leaving messages praying for Pope Francis as he battles pneumonia in a Rome hospital. Now shifting focus to Asia Pacific. On the China and Taiwan conundrum, China's military said it would tighten its noose around Taiwan if separatism over the island escalates, warning proponents to step back from the precipice or face a dead end.
The more rampant Taiwan independent separatists become, the tighter the noose around their necks and the sharper the sword hanging over their heads will be. We warn the DPP authorities, come back from the precipice before it's too late. Otherwise, you will meet a dead end.
Protests erupted across Bangladesh with students and teachers demanding death penalty for rapists after recent incidents, including the horrific rape of an 8-year-old girl in Magura. Demonstrations began in Dhaka and spread to other cities, calling for a fair investigation and harsh punishment for perpetrators. The protests intensified amid a rise in crimes against women and a perceived failure of law enforcement. On International Women's Day, 5 girls were reportedly raped and 2 survived attempted assaults. The High Court has ordered the trial of the Magura case to be completed in 180 days. Severe weather continues to cause devastation across the globe while Australia faces the aftermath of ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. Argentina is grappling with record rainfall that has left 13 dead and caused massive flooding. Diptanshu Kashyap brings us the latest updates from both the nations.
Severe rainfall and strong winds from ex-tropical cyclone Alfred have caused widespread flooding across Australia's southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales. Over 268,000 homes are without power, and emergency services are struggling to assist those trapped by rising floodwaters. Though the cyclone has weakened into a tropical depression, its impact continues with more rain and flooding expected. Authorities continue to urge residents to stay alert as the situation remains critical.
We were pretty prepared for that actually. We've been through many of these storm type events before. Once we realised that the low pressure system had basically stalled, we knew that the worst of the weather could easily be ahead of us, and that was the case unfortunately.
Meanwhile, in Argentina, the port city of Bahia Blanca has been devastated by heavy rains, with 260 millimeters of rainfall falling in just a few hours. The torrential downpour, caused by widespread flooding, destroyed bridges and forced evacuations from homes and hospitals. 13 people have been confirmed dead, with more feared missing as rescue operations continue. The Argentinian government has mobilized military and emergency teams to assist in the recovery effort, while the president of the country has pledged $9.2 million in aid.
Of course, the current situation prevents access to the city in many cases. But as soon as the weather gives us a break, we will reach every corner of the city with greater capacity. Please, I ask again what we have been requesting since the beginning of the day. Unless absolutely necessary, stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Bahia Blanca is without power today, a decision we instructed the company for safety reasons considering the flooding. It is important that we stay at home and remain united as we go through this challenging period we are facing in Bahia Blanca.
As both nations face extreme weather, recovery efforts are underway. In Australia, power outages and floodwaters continue to challenge emergency services. In Bahia Blanca, military trucks patrol the flooded streets, while rescue teams continue their search. Authorities in both the countries urged residents to stay cautious as more rain is expected in both areas. Diptanshu Kashyap's report for DD India.
And let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. The German trade union Verdi called for an unannounced strike at the Hamburg airport on Sunday. This led to cancellation of thousands of flights. The union wants to achieve higher wages and better working conditions for its employees. Bulgarian villagers showed off their horses in decorated harnesses on St. Theodore's Day, which is also known as Horse Easter in Bulgaria. During the celebration, races and various tests of strength are held for the horses. Heavy snowstorms battered parts of northwest China's Xinjiang, disrupting road traffic and prompted emergency responses from local authorities. Due to the hazardous conditions, traffic control measures were imposed in the region. A symposium co-sponsored by the Embassy of India in Japan and the Japanese Research Institute and the Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation explored the deepening partnership between India and Japan. DD India's Palomi Burman gets us this report.
The event on economic security and supply chain resilience, enhancing India-Japan cooperation. Major organizations like Japan Research Institute and Sumitomo Mitsui Bank Corporation came together with the Embassy of India to highlight India's growing importance as a strategic partner for Japan, particularly in the context of diversifying supply chains and enhancing economic security. The symposium began with welcome remarks from Katsunori Tanizaki, President and CEO of the Japan Research Institute, followed by an insightful inaugural speech by Ambassador Shibi George, who underscored India's potential.
India's role as a trusted, reliable and competitive manufacturing hub becomes increasingly relevant. With a large skilled workforce, a fastest growing innovation ecosystem and government policies that support high value manufacturing, India is positioned to play a key role in de-risking and diversifying supply chains. Initiatives such as Make in India, the Production Linked Incentive PLI schemes and the India Semiconductor Mission have been designed with a dual objective: strengthening India's own economic security and contributing to a more diversified and resilient global supply chain.
The panel discussion featured prominent figures like Kenji Hiramatsu, Chairman of Japan Research Institute, Kenichi Ayukawa from Suzuki Motor Corporation, Professor Yoshihiko Iwadare, and R. Madhusudan, India's Deputy Chief of Mission, who shared their perspectives on leveraging India's strengths.
There are some massive economic changes taking place in India, and that is covering all sectors, be it in infrastructure, in innovation, in semiconductors, and you name the sector, there is massive transformation that is happening.
As the networking session commences here, one thing resonates strongly, that India provides a stable and growth-oriented environment for Japanese businesses, keeping the focus on skilled labor, technological advancement and innovations. India is an attractive destination for global business. This is Palomi Burman reporting from Tokyo for DD India.
The Indian High Commissioner to Mauritius, Anurag Srivastava, has shared key insights ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming state visit. High Commissioner Srivastava highlighted the enduring people-to-people connections that form the foundation of the strong relationship between India and Mauritius. He emphasized the shared cultural heritage and the vibrant ties that have flourished over the years. DD India's Akshay Dongre brings this exclusive report.
Excitement is brewing up in Mauritius as Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to arrive in the country. Both the countries share very close relations, but with this state visit of Prime Minister, the relations are expected to grow to newer heights. And to talk about the state visit, we have the Ambassador of India to Mauritius, Mr. Anurag Srivastava. Sir, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to come and be the chief guest of the National Day of Mauritius. How significant do you think is this visit by the Prime Minister?
This is a very significant visit. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's visit, which is coming up on the 11th and 12th of March, is on the invitation of Prime Minister Dr. Naveen Chandra Ramgoolam, and Prime Minister Modi has been invited to be the chief guest at the National Day celebrations of Mauritius on the 12th of March. The date 12th March is of great significance to both countries. It is, of course, the day when Mauritius became independent. It was also the day when it was declared as a republic. But at the same time, this day was particularly chosen for a certain reason. This is the day when Mahatma Gandhi started his Dandi March from Sabarmati Ashram. So it is a day which holds significance to both countries. This visit is very high on symbolism. It is also very high in terms of our substantive outcomes and content. Because this is a truly special relationship.
Do you think this people-to-people connect is perhaps one of the very rare kind of connect that you see around the world between two countries?
Absolutely. This is a truly special relationship, as I said, because it is placed on the bedrock of our strong people-to-people ties. And these shared bonds of history, the shared bonds of culture, heritage and kinship that bind us together is the strength of the relationship. But at the same time, I must add that this relationship has evolved into a modern partnership which is very multifaceted. So Mauritius is our partner in terms of our interests in the Indian Ocean region. It is a maritime security partner. We have a development partnership relationship with Mauritius.
Indian High Commissioner to Mauritius, Mr. Anurag Srivastava, telling us about all the preparations that are going on and the excitement that is brewing up in this island nation for the arrival of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. With camera person Ajit Kumar, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And his excitement is brewing in Mauritius ahead of the two-day visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, during which he will also be the chief guest for the National Day of Mauritius. The Indian diaspora, which comprises about 70% of Mauritius's population, is preparing to welcome Prime Minister of India. DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre brings you this report from Port Louis in Mauritius. Listen in.
It may appear that where I'm standing right now is a part of an Indian city or town, but you'd be surprised to know that I'm thousands of miles away from the Indian borders. This is the capital of Mauritius, a country, an island nation that has about 70% of people are of Indian descent here, and that is the reason why the Indian heritage, the Indian culture has been preserved over hundreds of years. And in fact, you can see still there are people who cherish their Indian heritage, their Indian lineage and their Indian culture with the Indian delicacies that are served here around the country, the kind of music that is cherished by the people, and the kind of cultural connect that Mauritius has with India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is arriving in Mauritius on 11th of March to attend the National Day of Mauritius, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be attending as the chief guest in Mauritius. Both the countries have robust ties in terms of trade, in terms of cultural connect, in terms of people-to-people connect as well. With camera person Mahesh Sharma, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And all right, let's talk about the cricket match, the Champions Trophy. India has defeated New Zealand by 4 wickets to clinch the Champions Trophy for the third time in Dubai on Sunday. Chasing 252 runs for victory, Indian captain Rohit Sharma began briskly. He put on over 100 runs with Shubman Gill for the opening wicket, but New Zealand dismissed Gill, Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma in quick succession to regain control of the match. However, Shreyas Iyer and Akshar Patel rebuilt the Indian innings with over 60 runs partnership. After that, KL Rahul took the team over the line. Earlier, half-centuries from Daryl Mitchell and Michael Bracewell steered New Zealand to 251 runs for the loss of 7 wickets after India's spinners called the shots. Varun Chakrabarti and Kuldeep Yadav took 2 wickets each on a pitch that sided with slow bowlers. So finally, India won the match by 4 wickets with 6 balls remaining, with 1 over remaining. So India has won the Champions Trophy for the 3rd time, defeating New Zealand in the final in Dubai. We are joined by my colleague Siddharth Bhardwaj from Delhi. And also Tapas Bhattacharya, my colleague. Both Tapas and Siddharth, you were saying that India is in a comfortable position, looks like they will win, but somewhere in the middle it looked like it's not going to be easy, it's going to be a cliffhanger. But when it came to the end, they won by 4 wickets with still 6 balls to go. Siddharth, you go first.
Oh, definitely, Amrit, and it's a lovely moment. It's a glorious moment for everyone in the entire country, and not just in the country, but for the entire world. This is a moment to be cherished. This is a moment to be loved. India won the Champions Trophy 2025. They beat New Zealand by 4 wickets, and courtesy to KL Rahul's batting, courtesy to Hardik Pandya's batting, courtesy to how they steadied the inning. And you were right, Amrit, when you said that in the middle it looked like anything can happen and the match could go anywhere. But I told you earlier as well that we have the best batting side in the world. They know that how to play, they know in what conditions to play, they know what batters that we have, they know in what conditions to play. The pivotal factor, I would say, is the sensible batting that the Indian batters adopted today, and in every match as well. You can see behind me, Amrit, the shout, the excitement among the people, the excitement among the fans after winning the Champions Trophy 2025. And now they'll be donning the white coat and show to the world that we are the best side in the world. India is the best side in the world. Definitely coming on to you, Amrit. It was looking like the match could go anywhere, but I told you, being the best batting side, the middle order was also strengthened, and every batter played sensibly, and they knew where to hit, they knew when to hit, and that's where the result is. That paid dividend.
All right. Okay, let me bring in Taposh. Taposh, what worked for the Indians? Where did the Black Caps err? Okay, I'll go back to Taposh later. I think. Okay, Taposh, can you hear me?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
I can hear you. Am I audible? Yeah, lovely. So I was actually saying that Siddharth is quite excited, but let me bring into perspective a few things. The first and foremost is that India started off well, and that's something we have to give credit to Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill. And they scored in the first power play, that is the first 10 overs, they scored 64 runs. The downfall in the second power play. In the second power play, that is from the 10th over to the 40th over, India scored 127 runs and they lost 4 wickets. So that is where the balance of equation actually was disrupted. But again, as I mentioned, the batting lineup goes really deep. So you had Jadeja coming at number 8, and then you had people like even KL Rahul coming in late in the order, so giving that depth in the batting. So that's something that we always knew. One thing that the New Zealand probably couldn't thought of, or they missed out a trick or two, is not having that extra spinner in their side. They had Ravindra, they had Santner, they had Bracewell, and 3 of them bowled really quite economically. But they probably required one more spinner, possibly another a wrist spinner to come and play its role. That's something that Kuldeep Yadav, the kind of role that Kuldeep Yadav played for India in the first innings. So that's something that they missed a trick or two.
Taposh, can I stop you for a moment? Prime Minister has tweeted. Let's first break that. The Prime Minister has congratulated the Indian team. He says, an exceptional game and an exceptional result. Proud of our cricket team for bringing home the ICC Champions Trophy. They have played wonderfully throughout through the tournament. Congratulations to our team for the splendid all-round display. This is what the Prime Minister has posted on X. I'll read it again. It's up on your screens. And the Prime Minister says, an exceptional game and an exceptional result. proud of our cricket team for bringing home the ICC Champions Trophy. They played wonderfully through the tournament. Congratulations to our team for the splendid all-round display. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulating the Indian team. The country visibly happy. The Indian fans would be happy. Before I come back to you, Tapos, I want to go for a moment to Siddharth and ask him to show me, because there are fans behind him, to paint a mood of how people on the streets of the national capital where both of you are, what is their reaction to the win of the Indian cricket team, which the Prime Minister says calls an exceptional game and an exceptional result, and has congratulated the Indian team, the Indian cricket team, for bringing home the ICC Champions Trophy, calling it that they have played wonderfully through the tournament, and he's congratulated the team for the splendid all-round display. Siddharth, can you come in?
Yeah, definitely, Amrit. I would like to show you, I would like to request my camera person to actually show you the visuals here where I am. People are so much excited, Amrit, and you know, that's quite evident. I was telling you since the beginning that cricket in India is not just a game, it's considered as religion, and where I am standing right now, the atmosphere is quite electric. And people are enjoying the victory. People are bleeding blue. And you also just mentioned that Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted on X congratulating the Indian side. It actually shows, it goes out to the global world, Amrit, that what we are as a sporting side, what we are as a cricketing side, and what we are, collectively as a sporting side, what we are doing. We are doing so much for our athletes. We are doing so much for sports persons. The schemes that are being launched by the Honorable Prime Minister, the athletes are getting actually those advantages, and the results are dividends. You see that in the Olympics. You see that in Champions Trophy. Now they will be in a while donning the white coat, and they will be enjoying. And this is the moment which will be etched in their memories, and not just in their memories, Amrit. It will be etched in their minds forever, minds and hearts. That is the incredible moment that I am witnessing right now, and so are you, Amrit, and so is Tapas. It is definitely an incredible moment, celebrating the victory of our Indian team. It's truly glorious. Back to you, Amrit.
Okay. I'll, wind this up with going back to Tapas Bhattacharya. Tapas, when Rohit Sharma went into this tournament, there were a lot of questions being asked about, is it over for him? Virat didn't do well today, as Rohit did, and but through the tournament he's played well. Do they still have cricket left in them, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli? Is that question decisively answered today?
Well, the question is not whether the cricket is left. Definitely cricket is left, but whether they want to play ODI cricket further. So that's the question that they would like to ask, and I'm very sure they will come up with their own answers. I won't be surprised if by the end of the day, when the hoopla and the celebration gets over, you might just see both of them say that, hey, let's just call it a day in the ODI format. They did the same in the T20 World Cup when Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli said we will like to call it a day in the T20 format. They won the T20 World Cup, the back-to-back title in ODI. They might just say they will like to hang up our boots in the ODI format and concentrate on the longer version, that is the Test cricket, in the next few more years. So that is also a possibility. We have to wait and see, but definitely what a way to go. If they do, that will be a huge point. But again, we have to wait and watch for what exactly happened. But so right now, Indian team will be soaking in this amazing win. Back-to-back victory, and you can see everybody in the Delhi and now on road driving bikes, burning the firecrackers to celebrate India's back-to-back ICC title.
So I'll request both of you to stay on. I'm going to leave. Abhishek Mahajan, my colleague, is going to come in. I'll take a short break. We don't go away. We'll be back in a moment. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.